Good afternoon, students. I'm Ms. Mulungu, your tutor for English 2. Welcome to the presentation for English 2. This presentation will cover the subject content in brief. That means I will not cover everything, but I will outline some of the content that is important for the upcoming examinations. By now, you should have a good idea of what the subject is about, having done the assignment that you did and having read and studied for the upcoming exams. Let's start off with our content, starting with the value of giving feedback to the learners after an activity. There are some teachers who fail to give feedback to the learners, let alone do corrections with the learners. This is wrong. Learners need to know where they went wrong. They need to know the preferred approach. Sometimes a learner may have written a very good piece. Let's say, for example, in essay writing. Here you don't normally give a learner 0 out of 10 or 0 out of 20, except if the learner is really just out of topic. But if you give a learner a 2 out of 10, for example, you need to explain to the learner why that specific learner got that mark. Where did they go wrong? What was the preferred approach? Because sometimes they have a clue on what it is the question is about, and they have given effort, they have tried, but still they did not get a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. They need to know what they have done wrong. They also need suggestions on ways in which it could have been correct or better. You don't give a learner a low mark or a high mark without reason. There should be a reason why you awarded that specific mark. So as a teacher, it's your responsibility to make sure the learners understood where they went wrong. It's also important to give feedback so that the learners will not repeat the same mistake. If you just give a learner 2 out of 10 and then you give another activity without commenting on their work, they will not know and they will keep repeating the same mistake over and over again. The next slide is how a teacher can build learners' confidence to speak English in a classroom. The first thing that you need to do, you as a teacher, is use only English in your classroom. As an English teacher, don't use Afrikaans, don't use Oshiwambo, don't use any other language. The learners normally imitate what you do. So if you model appropriate behavior, you speak English in your English lessons, the learners will do the same thing. When you give a responsibility to a learner or you ask a question, the learner must also try to respond in English. Even if they are struggling, they must make an effort to respond only in English in your English classroom. To make things even better, learners can also speak English in and out of the classroom. Let's say maybe when they go for physical education, encourage them to communicate in English. When they are at break, encourage them to communicate in English. And the next point is there should be a lot of talking in class. This way, the learners will get used to speaking in English. If you as a teacher always come to class and lecture, you teach the whole day, not giving learners an opportunity to talk, they will not learn anything. They will not get comfortable. They will not get the confidence to speak openly in English in your class. Your classroom should be friendly and inviting. And by friendly and inviting, I don't only mean the physical appearance of the class, but I also include the atmosphere. If you as a teacher are a friendly person, then then the learners will also be more comfortable and confident in communicating when they come to your class. Encourage the learners and assist them by correcting their mistakes with patience and understanding. Don't shout at a learner for making a grammar mistake. We all make them. Don't shout at a learner for mispronouncing a word. Correct them. But don't do it too often that the learner starts giving up and starts shying away from taking part in conversations in the class. Don't downgrade them. Don't make them feel bad for not speaking the correct English. At least encourage them so that they learn from their mistakes and feel free to contribute to group discussions or lessons. The next point is use group work in our lessons. As a teacher, you need to have a variety of strategies. If you use pair work or you give individual work and it's not working, why not integrate group work in your lesson? In group work, in groups, learners are more comfortable because they are on their own. And if a strong learner starts talking in a group, other learners will also follow suit. The learners are mostly comfortable with their peers. So if you pitch the lesson at their level, then the learners are also going to be eager to take part in schoolwork at group level. Ensure that you find out which activities your learners love to do best. Remember, there is no one perfect way of teaching. So you must have variety. You can have a singing lesson. Remember, you can always manipulate content here and there to make it suitable for the learners. Learners can sing. They are primary school kids. They can sing, they can dance, and they can do role plays. Another thing is, do not use too many difficult words in your lessons, and be sure to explain words which they may find difficult. If you are this teacher who is always using those big words that learners cannot understand, what are you really doing? You cannot deliver a lesson in which you use difficult words and expect the basic competencies to be met. Use languages which is understandable. And when you use difficult words here and there, at least explain those words to the learners. Types of writing. We have different types of writing, including narrative. In the narrative type of writing, you tell a story, you narrate a story. For example, a type of narrative topic can be the day I almost died. There, Elena will tell a story of what happened. They will narrate events in a story from the beginning to the end. The next type of writing is the argumentative. Here, a learner is expected to argue for or against a certain topic. And in an argumentative type of writing, it can be an essay. A learner is actually supposed to come up with a stance showing where they stand and come up with arguments to support that stance. The next type of writing is the expository type of writing, in which the writer aims to inform people about something, to explain something, to describe something or define something to the reader. An example of a topic there can be the effects of global warming. The next type of writing is persuasive writing. The term persuasive means convince. So when you write a persuasive piece, you should be able to convince the reader to do something. You can use it in marketing. When you are marketing a product, you can use the persuasive form. You can also give an essay to the learners. For example, there should be different classes for boys and girls. The difference between the persuasive writing and the argumentative writing is that with persuasive, you are only given a side. You don't choose yourself, like with the argumentative, where you have to choose whether you are for or against a certain topic. The next type of writing is descriptive writing. When you describe something, you use your senses. So you are supposed to use words that refer to sight, words that refer to touch, when you describe, when you describe, let's say, for example, your favorite form of transport, when you describe your best friend, when you describe your grandmother, that is called descriptive writing. The next slide is what teachers could do to solve the learners' problems regarding speaking. The first thing is, do not correct every word that your learners say. If a learner makes a mistake, remember, we are not perfect. No one is perfect. Now, if a learner keeps making mistakes and you as a teacher keep correcting every mistake the learner makes, you are destroying their confidence. Next time, they will not even raise their hand to say something in class. The next thing is, start the class by asking how everyone is doing and how their day went. This will make the learners to open up. They will even those shy ones who normally stand back will start opening up and taking part in the lessons. Start with an interesting news article that is based on the level of your class once or twice a week. You can take newspapers, for example, or you can take a newspaper article, for example, that you think your learners will be able to understand and also find interesting. You can also divide the class in groups and prepare skits. Skits like plays, and these skits should be based on their lesson. When you place learners in groups, they become more comfortable because you as a teacher, you stand back a little and allow the learners in the groups to discuss and only ask them to report at the end of the lesson. The next point is, write a question on the board such as, what would you do if you had $1 million? Questions like this are more imaginative. The learners will be able to open up because their imagination works very well and fast. So if you start off with a question which is interesting and easy, the learners will open up and contribute towards the lesson. The next slide is characteristics of successful speaking activities in classrooms. And the first point is, learners talk a lot. It is very difficult to find a class which is successful in speaking and it's quiet. So if you find that the teacher is there, an activity is given, and teachers are and learners are talking a lot, that means an activity has been successful. Next point, participation is even. Even when the teacher is around and there's an activity that is taking place, you will find that not only specific learners are taking part, but most or all of the learners are taking part. That means these learners are open, these learners are free, and then participation becomes even. Motivation is high. If learners are motivated to speak, that means you have given them something interesting that has captured their interest and are willing to volunteer themselves to take part in a lesson. Language is of an acceptable level. It's not only about speaking, but speaking language which is of acceptable level. You'll find that there's a difference between a learner that is in grade 2 and a learner that is in grade 7. The language becomes different. The next slide is the difference, sorry for the error there, the grammar error, difference between written and spoken language. In spoken language, we use colloquialism. We use words that are in a contracted form like I'll for I will and don't for do not. But in written language, these things are less common. Spoken language has many slang words. You find a person using the word braai. You will find a person using the word cherry. You will find people using a lot of words which are not acceptable in written language. Again, in spoken language is less formal. You don't need to adhere to grammar rules. You don't have to pronounce correctly. But with written language, you have to be formal. You have to stick to the rules. Spoken language, again, is less precise. But with written language, it is more precise. Spoken language cannot be revised. Once you say something, you cannot really take it back because the words are gone already. But with written language, you can publish a book and still have an edition. So written language can be revised. Spoken language, it allows clarification and additional information. If you give directions to someone, for example, and the person did not get what you said, you can always repeat the information again or give extra information just to make sure that the information that you have given is clear. But in written language, if you print something, let's say directions to somewhere, and you have not written an edition of that specific writing, then a person cannot really go back and say, okay, let me read through, maybe I'll find something different. What's there is what you get. In spoken language, again, misinterpretations are less common, as a person can always clarify. But with written language, the content may be misinterpreted because the person is not there to say, okay, this is what I meant here, or this is what I meant there. The next slide is on diphthongs. A diphthong is a sound formed by the combination of two vowels in a single syllable, in which the sound begins as one vowel and moves towards one another. Examples that I gave here are like baby. Listen to the sound baby, A-B. So there's a sound of A in the word baby. So those are two vowels, baby, A, two vowel sounds. The next example is boil. Boil. Remember, you are looking at the vowel sound and not just the vowel itself. There, in that example, boil, there are two vowels, but the sound is only of a diphthong. The sound in boil is oi, boil, oi. Okay? The next example is cry. You will find that in the word cry, there is no vowel, but still there is a vowel sound, which is I cry, I cry. So those are examples of diphthongs. Next slide is on public speaking techniques by referring to the effective speaker. A similar question was asked in the assignment, and there are some students who did not, who let's say only focused on public speaking techniques or speaking techniques in general. But the question was to refer to the effective speaker. So here are the things which are also part of your study guide. The first thing is know your PAL, which stands for, the P stands for purpose, A for audience, and L for logistics. You need to know who you are talking to. and why you are talking to those people. Are you aiming to inform? Are you aiming to convince the people? You should know all these things. And the next point is prepare adequately. You have to prepare enough. So you will avoid making mistakes when you are in front of people. Create a user-friendly final draft that you can fall back in case you misplace the original. So in case you lose the original, you can always go back last minute and still have something. It's better than losing your original and then you have to start over, or you leave people or the audience hanging. The next point is practice at least 3 to 6 times out loud. What they say is practice makes perfect. If you practice, you are bound to make fewer or no mistakes. You can practice perhaps in front of the mirror. You can record yourself. You can practice in front of friends. And if your friends or even yourself, after listening to the recording, you don't find your presentation interesting, no one else will. When you are going to deliver a speech, you need to arrive early. Don't make the audience wait for you. Once you make them wait for you, you are already sending off a bad signal. You will look bad in front of the audience. And the last point there is delivery techniques. Consider the 3 V's. The visual, what people see. You must dress nicely. If you are giving a PowerPoint presentation, everyone must be able to see, even those people that are seated at the back. The verbal and vocal. Make sure you use language which is appropriate. Make sure that your voice is loud enough, but not too high to disturb the audience, not too low to bore them. Plus, avoid words which are not acceptable in public. The next slide is on lesson preparations. In the examination, you will normally be provided with learning objectives and basic competencies, which are from the prescribed syllabus. But in assignments, you will be told, for example, to come up with a listening activity for grade 5 learners. So when you plan that lesson, you make sure that the learning objectives and basic competencies are from a prescribed syllabus, which you can take from the NIED website, or you can ask from teachers who are already in the profession. When you are planning your lesson, make sure that you don't plan to teach one skill only at a time. You can integrate up to 4 skills in a lesson, and the 4 skills are there's reading, there's writing, there's speaking, and there's listening. So you can either pair up listening and writing or listening and speaking, but don't only teach one skill. If you give learners an article to read, for example, let them write, give them questions and then let them write. Or let them read the article and then you discuss in class as well. Or you can do all 4 of them. You can include all 4 skills in one lesson, but never one skill in a lesson. And the next point is presentation of lesson. There's a part in the lesson plan which is called presentation of the lesson. This is how you are planning to deliver your lesson. Is it going to be in a form of group work? Is it going to be you as a teacher just preaching to the learners and them doing all the listening? Or is it going to be peer tutoring? What is it exactly? That is what presentation of lesson refers to. And the last part there is English across the curriculum. This refers to content from all other areas. You don't only have content from the English subject, but you can also use maybe topics like HIV from life skills. You can use content from social studies. You can use environmental studies. You can take or use topics from all other subjects that you wish, for as long as your lesson includes all the 4 language skills. In conclusion, I would advise my dear students not to try to memorize everything. Read and understand, and please use your study guide. It has a lot of crucial information. As you write your exams, please read the instructions carefully before attempting to answer. Make sure you understand the question also. Look at the verb. If it says discuss, please discuss. If it says list, please list. And please, as you answer, consider the number of marks allocated per question. That will help you determine how much you are expected to write. Write as neatly as you can to make it easier for the tutor to mark. And the last thing there is use your own examples to show your understanding. Good luck with your exams, dear students, and have a blessed day.